Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Dave, Season 2, Episode 3, The Observer. This is a show where I recap every episode of the show, the FX show, Dave, starring Little Dicky, David Byrd. So if you don't want to be spoiled on the episode, head on over to another episode of The Ray Taylor Show and just skip on by this one. But if you are a fan of the show, Dave, welcome. If you're somebody that just wants to hear about the show, Dave, and don't mind it being spoiled, welcome. But let's get into it, shall we? Starting off, we have Dave and Benny Blanco hanging out. You have them, quote-unquote, working. Kind of working on some new beats. It's a bit of a montage showing Dave and Benny bonding, getting to know each other. Apparently they had an adult sleepover, which is something that I've never done with an adult man before. I mean, I've definitely crashed at people's houses, I guess, right? Like when you're drunk, you don't want to drive home, you crash at somebody's house. But not in the sense of these guys where it's, you know, they're playing around, they're having fun to an extreme amount. This is also where they give each other the nickname Chuck. They call each other Chuck throughout this. Kind of sounds like they're saying chick, but they are saying Chuck. And it comes from the origin of that name that they call each other comes from Benny making some tacos and Dave asking what type of meat it is. And somebody says Chuck. I forget. I think Dave probably says, is that Chuck meat? And Benny just takes it as Dave calling him Chuck, so he calls him Chuck. And that's just how the Chuck thing happens. But the montage of their bonding is crazy. It is heterosexual. It is gay chicken, basically. These two straight men being as gay as possible around each other in all of the ways I would never feel comfortable being. I am not that. I mean, I'm comfortable in my sexuality, but I'm not. I don't generally make it a point to pretend to be into things that I'm not necessarily in order. Like it's like a fun thing. They're not necessarily being mean about it, but they're going around. They're playing the piano. They're breakdancing. They're playing ping pong. They're talking a little bit about business here and there. You have they're doing giving each other pedicures. They're snuggling in bed. Like, it kind of escalates. Like, it seems just like, oh, two bros hanging out. And then it just escalates more and more to where they're really snuggling in bed, like an intimate couple. Like, I don't have that. I maybe intimacy issues where I'm not a big, I don't know. Like, I have to be, like, physical contact with other humans. I have to be in a relationship to be physically as snuggly and close as they are. There's scenes of them taking showers together. You have Dave pulling his dick out while they're in bed to show Benny how messed up his dick is. You have cut to them in a shower, and Dave is still showing, like, Benny is down on the ground, and Dave is just, like, showing him his asshole, puts his balls on his face at one point. They're wrestling naked. They're, like, running around everywhere, jumping in the pool, like, all over Benny's house, like this nice, beautiful house. They are just naked and being free, and it's fun. It's like, fun to watch them as free as they are. Like, it is a crazy thing how much, I mean, from the moment Benny Blanco came to the show, right, where he was introduced, the label set him up, and he introduces himself to the show with, like, one of the most epic "Somebody Suck Me's," and it really, like, somebody in this show that really is almost another version of Dave's like vibe. It's crazy. He's like almost another Dave, and they look similar. But it's crazy their bond that they have. Like, in general, it's interesting to see how Dave how he acts in each of his kind of different relationships. Like his relationship with Mike is definitely changing because Mike is the business manager. So Dave, there's even the conversation with Benny. Benny asks him if it's like, well, you live with Mike, you guys don't bond like this, and you know, Dave mentions that now that he's his manager, it's a different type of relationship, which you definitely see. This episode highlights, like, there is a massive contrast in what is Dave and Benny's kind of relationship and their friendship, and then you cut to what Mike's life is like in this episode. But yeah, they're having fun. This whole montage of stuff. They're playing kiss chicken. Like, how close can you get to like not kissing? It is fun to watch. Put it that way. Cut to, we see the contrast to that. We see Mike looking sad in bed, fully dressed in bed, but decides to get out. Like, clearly has been. It's later in the day. I've had these feelings. Like, he probably got up. Like, what we don't see in this episode. Mike probably got up earlier, got dressed, and he's like, fuck today. And he just went back to bed. And then he's like done on his phone, so he gets out of bed. And he's looking for Dave. Dave's not there, obviously. He spent the night over at Benny's house. They were, quote-unquote, working. But he's looking through their mansion that they're staying in, looking for Dave. No one's there, so Mike ends up going out onto the patio and taking a few selfies of himself with the beautiful L.A. skyline in the background, taking off his shirt in a Bert Kreischer type of a moment, revealing his blindingly pale skin as he's, you know, takes multiple pictures, the selfies in front of the skyline, which, of course, I wouldn't be taking pictures of me, maybe one. I'm definitely not taking my shirt off. I have a completely different build than Andrew Santino. That's no secret, but definitely more of a Bert Kreischer body. But I'm not a big selfie guy, so I wouldn't be taking selfies. But, like, I'd definitely be taking pictures of that view just because it's a gorgeous view. But that's what Mike's kind of like. He's alone, and he's just kind of chilling out. Low key. Cut back to now. Dave is trying to put bubble gum into Benny Blanco's asshole so he can blow a fart bubble, which I don't know if is technically even possible. But they stick the gum in there. GaTa. Dave gets a call from GaTa. GaTa's at a tattoo place about to get LD tattooed on his face. Dave quickly talks him out of that. I've had a friend say that he's going to get, not on his face, but going to get my logo tattooed on him, and that's a weird feeling. I don't think he ever did. He was not a good friend, it turned out, so I guess it's kind of good that he didn't get my logo tattooed on him. But kind of a weird feeling for somebody to get, especially since Dave is like, he has this, like, aura. He has this attitude like he is the best rapper ever, but then at the same time, he, like, on certain things, he's very tempered with how he does stuff. But he talks GaTa out of getting the face tattoo. Benny invites GaTa over. GaTa's hanging out with his buddy Tone. Tone is talking shit to GaTa about how he doesn't think that GaTa's actually friends with Dave and Benny Blanco, and that he's just like they're just his meal ticket. And GaTa, of course, is positive as ever. He's like, dude, I've done all this stuff. We're bros. We're friends. Which, yes, Dave and GaTa are friends. They are not the same type of friends that Dave is with Benny Blanco. But then again, none of Dave's friends, as far as the show is shown, Dave is not that type of friend with anybody. Like, this is a very unique friendship that Dave has with Benny Blanco. But Benny invites him over, and GaTa's gonna show his buddy Tone what's up. So they're gonna take Benny up on that. Cut back to, well, not cut back to, I guess. GaTa texts Dave that we're gonna pull up in 20 minutes. And Dave's like, are they really coming over? Obviously, Dave is not as comfortable, or just not comfortable with people knowing how free and open he is with Benny Blanco, right? It's very much that relationship that he has with Benny Blanco is something that is something that he's not is a private thing for him. But they're going to pull up 20 minutes, and we find out that gum that, of course, Benny Blanco doesn't look like an Olympic swimmer. He has body hair, and a lot of that hair is in the asshole region. And, of course, you add chewing gum to body hair in any region, let alone one of the biggest flaps on the human body between the butt cheeks, and you're going to have problems. And Benny Blanco is having problems, and it's painful, of course. You have bubblegum pulling at individual hairs on your asshole because you thought you were going to blow a fart bubble. You know, so not every idea is a good idea, even when you're like a very successful producer. Successful people come up with horrible ideas all the time. And now a quick word from our sponsor. Now you can wear The Many Faces, original art by Ray Taylor. Select pieces from the ongoing series of abstract ink paintings. All products made with high-quality materials, made right here in the USA. Go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch to browse the entire collection and save yourself an extra 10% when you check out by using coupon code RTSTMF. So once again, go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch and save 10% when you use coupon code RTSTMF. And now, back to our show. So now we cut to Mike is now jogging around where their mansion is, talking on the phone with somebody from his family. We find out later that he was talking to his brother. You know, family drama stuff, right? Just generic family drama stuff that Mike isn't too enthused to be having talk about. He shows up at the house. In front of the house, their trash can's out, and there's a note on one of the trash cans. And the note is from The Observer, and it's telling him in a very polite way that the packaged peanuts, like the trash can lid, is open just askew, like just enough for the wind to blow out some of these packaging peanuts. And one of the neighbors is a concerned neighbor. Now, let me mention these specific type as a packaging peanut connoisseur. I know that by looking at these packaging peanuts that they used in the production of the film, that these packaging peanuts are the type that are made of like cornstarch or something. Like you could literally eat them and it just dissolves. You can run them under water and they dissolve. So they're actually very good for the environment, at least unless I'm off. But the ones that look like white Cheetos, like those are the ones that are like biodegradable. Like I remember seeing as a child, a news broadcast about these new biodegradable packaging peanuts, and I was staying at a friend's house and they got a package, and I took just a random packaging peanut out of that and ate it. Thankfully, it was one of the biodegradable ones, but it was a packaging peanut, so who knows what else had touched that packaging peanut. Wasn't necessarily a food-safe product, but I definitely ate it, just trusting the news, blindly trusting the news as a child. But Mike, pissed off that anybody would give a shit about his trash cans blowing packaging peanuts around town, kicks over the trash can in frustration, which only leads to more packaging peanuts being, sprayed everywhere. So not, just adding insult to injury, as it were. Cut back to the peanut butter is now being added to the bubble gum on the butthole situation. GaTa and Tone haven't showed up yet, but there's still gum to be dealt with. And it's a situation where they think adding peanut butter, which I think, like, getting gum, I remember falling asleep once, again, as a child. These are very childish things that that keep getting brought up in my memory. But going to sleep with gum in my mouth, and it wakes up inevitably in your hair. And apparently there's a thing where you can use peanut butter to get the gum out of your hair. I don't think I've ever successfully done that or seen that be done. Generally, it is the removal of the hair that the gum is attached to tends to be the solution. But they try the peanut butter in his butt, and then it's not working, so they decide to use scissors to cut it out, which kind of effortlessly cut it out, because that would be the logistics of actually cutting bubble gum out of a hairy asshole. Seems, I would assume, to be a very precarious mission to kind of take on, but very successful. Dave must be a master with the scissors. He must be a scissor bro, as it were. But he's able to cut it out. And just as he does, you get a knock on the door, and it's GaTa and it's Tone. They show up. They're impressed with the giant house. They're talking about getting some food. They smell Tone smells peanut butter, and Benny's like, we could just order food. But anyway, or I can order some peanut butter for you if you're hungry. But they decide to order some food. Cut back to Mike on this mission now because of this observer. Tapes up. He writes a response letter that he's frantically trying to unspool a piece of clear packaging tape, which, of course, is not being very cooperative with him. But he's trying to tape this response letter to his trash can, and he puts the trash can very specifically in front of their doorbell camera. And then Mike goes in the garage, sits down at his laptop to just stare at the camera, because that's what Mike's got going on that day. Nobody else is in this mansion. Now he's got a mission. This observer person that's like a trash can Nazi. So he's on a mission to try and find out who it is. Back to Benny's place. They're ordering food. Dave is trying to order food for Tone. Tone's rolling a joint. Benny's recapping the actual events that happened, specifically one of the things that they were doing together. And you could see Dave uncomfortable with... Benny has no problem. Benny has zero issue with the openness that he had with Dave at all. Dave definitely feels awkward in the situation. Then you have GaTa and Tone, who are on the complete opposite end, that are just not at all interested in the gay shit that they were doing together, which makes sense. And culturally, there is a bit more stigma attached to homosexuality in the African American communities, and tends to be more of a... there's... as far as issues that a black person in America, or in a lot of places in this world, the issues they have to deal with, having the freedom to just play around and act gay with each other is not something that's high on their list as far as things to do. But they're not into it. Dave's uncomfortable. GaTa is all about love. GaTa shows love in different ways, talking about how he gave Tone a skateboard and all this stuff. GaTa has been the example of love in all of these episodes, right? Because he is the Ted Lasso of this show, right? He is the positivity. He's always trying to bring it back to the positive, but not in that same type of flamboyant way that Benny is depicting him and Dave were doing. And they mention that, bromance, that idea of a bromance is a very much a white privilege type of a thing, right? Where life is so much easier. You don't have to deal with stigmas and things that other people from other cultures and other higher melanin content have to deal with. And that's why you don't see any black bromance movies. and they try to come up with one, and they couldn't come up with one. The closest was Moonlight, and that's just a romance movie. But yeah, there's no black romance movies. So that's why you don't see black dudes playing gay chicken. It's just not. That's part of white privilege is the ability to play gay chicken with each other. And Tone, it's not a thing where he has an issue with like body parts of a person. Tone is an EMT. He's seen it all. So Benny trying to push Tone a little bit is like threatening to show him his butthole that was just previously had gum stuck to it. Probably could have used Tone moments ago in the removal of the bubble gum, but while Benny was showing Tone his asshole, Tone notices a little bit of a mass on his ass. In which case, the reality, like Benny just slammed back to reality. Just whatever wind was under his sails as he was flying high, enjoying, pushing the boundaries of what is acceptable. The wind cut out and he came crashing down to the ground when he starts panicking, having a panic attack because of this mass that Tone found on his asshole. Dave trying to comfort Benny in a way, telling him, was like, don't worry, I have a dermatologist. I have back knee issues. I'm going to this dermatologist to the stars. I'll be able to get you in there pronto, bro. Don't worry about it. But Benny is just having a panic attack. Meanwhile, GaTa's like just as chill and calm before, trying to take selfies, like, check out this place. And Tone's just, finishing, I don't know if he finished rolling, he's smoking the joint. Like, both of them, because they're not playing this fantasy play-around game, they've been grounded the whole time. Unlike Dave and Benny, who are now in complete panic mode, they're still as neutral as they were before. Cut back to Mike in the garage, checking out the camera, sees somebody throw a bag of dog poop in their trash can. And, of course, Mike just looking for any reason. Like, he has nothing. Like, his life is so effortless and easy that he has to. Another white privilege-y thing, right? Like, you can just wait watching a camera of trash can to confront somebody. So he runs out, grabs the dog shit out of the trash can, and he's, like, on this slow-mo foot chase. Not slow-mo, but he's trying to see where this guy walking his dog went, because he assumes that's the person that was the observer. And while he's trying to track this person down, there's another guy out front of his house cutting cardboard boxes down to put in his trash can, to put in his recycle bin. And he offers Mike to throw the dog shit into his trash can so he doesn't have to walk around with it all day. And Mike's like, why would I do that? Why would I put my shit in your can? Like, Mike is now all of a sudden very, very protective over who gets to use whose trash can. And it's a situation where you can either, the neighbor's like, well, you can either be right, which Mike wants to be right, or you can be happy. You can just let it go because it's not a big deal. But Mike wants it to be right. And, of course, Mike on this, like, high of like, just like pumped with, like, anger, pulls out his phone in, like, the most Karen fashion to live stream this neighbor who's doing nothing, just super calm, going like, why are you filming me right now? Like, he made a thing where he said something where that clued Mike in to know that he was the observer. And he asked him if he's the observer, and he said no. And Mike's like, why would you just say no? Why wouldn't you just be curious to know what the observer is? How do you know what the observer is? So Mike pulls out his camera, and he's like, I'm going to get you canceled. I'm going to get you fired from your job. Like, there's people pull out their cameras for a lot of reasons, right? And a lot of the time, it's for protection. A lot of the time. But then there's people that try to fabricate a story in order to get somebody canceled on like completely bullshit means. Like, you saw that a lot of the times from the Karens, especially during the pandemic, you had the classic one where it's like that Karen who had their dog like just cranked up on the collar, like choking the life out of her dog and like saying that a black dude was trying to rape her. Meanwhile, he's just like calmly filming her, you know? Like you got to see during the pandemic all of these Karens just come out of the woodwork just threatening to lie to the police in order to get a person of color arrested, which is the historically go-to move for white people, right? That is one of the most dangerous aspects to white privilege, is that you can call the law enforcement, and when it's your word over somebody with more melanin content in their skin, the one with less melanin content is trusted because of the system that is the police department, which are primarily terrorists. So yeah, the terrorist organizations are going to believe racist white people. So that's what Mike's trying to do, which is kind of sad because it's like, I like Mike's character and he's really being an asshole. It's like such not a big deal, but you kind of find out why Mike's angry or could be angry. He's alone in his house. He has like his friend Dave is less of a friend now. Dave and him are no longer really friends. They are it's primarily a business relationship. So not that Mike is seeing the type of friendship that Dave has with Benny, but it is a clear contrast of the two relationships that Dave has with these two people. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. So Mike probably a little bit peeved at that. Cut back to now, the whole crew, Dave, Benny, GaTa, and Tone are at the dermatologist's office. Dave's signing him in. Benny doesn't have insurance, but brought like stacks of cash. Just a stack of cash, puts it on there. He's still out of it. Dave gets him signed up. While Dave's signing his name in, he notices that his ex, Allie, had been there previously that day. And he still hasn't heard from her, so he decides, I'm going to call her. I'm going to text her. Goes to calls, goes straight to voicemail, texts her, and instead of being a blue text on an iPhone, it's the green text, I think. I'm colorblind. I'm pretty sure that's the color. And Dave's like, what is this? Asking GaTa. It's like, oh, she blocked you, bro. That's what happens when you get blocked. So now Dave is like, fuck, like she's blocked me now. Which Dave always in his own head, not able to like step out of himself for a moment because his love buddy Benny Blanco is having an issue, not really trying to calm him down. You got Tone and GaTa just chilling, just as the most calm you can be throughout this entire show, and of course GaTa still trying to like show Dave love. He's like, I love you, man. It's like, it's okay. Like, you don't need this ex to love you. Like, you got plenty of love around here. Look around what you got here. Cut back to now, later on in the night. It's nighttime. Dave is out front of a house, gets out of a car, and he's like, let's see what Allie's doing on social media. And he's scrolling, and then he sees one of the selfies that Mike took, and then he's like, oh, shit. Gives Mike a call. Mike's out on the patio again. It's nighttime now, but you see the lights of the L.A. backdrop, the skyline all lit up. with lights and the fires going in the fire pit. Mike answers, and Dave's like, it's like as if Dave had planned it. He's like, happy birthday, right? We find out in this episode that it was Mike's birthday, and he was completely alone. The only time he talked to anybody was his family, and it was just family drama stuff. It wasn't like a good conversation. He wasn't surrounded by friends on his birthday. He was alone in a mansion, trying to track down the observer. Just angry. Probably a lot of that anger fueled with the fact that he is the odd man out. He's no longer part of the friend group, really. I mean, he is, but it's a different dynamic now. But Dave making the excuse, I wanted to make sure I wasn't calling you during the heavy time of calls, all of the flood of people trying to wish you a happy birthday. But he wished him a happy birthday. Mike accepts it. And then you could tell, like, he asks what Mike did on his day, and Mike's kind of going through his day, and you can tell Dave is a mile away. Mike can tell Dave is not paying attention whatsoever. I hate that so much. When somebody asks me a question and it is so blatantly obvious that they are not at all paying attention to my answer. Like, in so many instances when that happens, I just stop talking. It's like, this has happened on podcasts where, like, I'm talking to somebody on a podcast and they ask me a question and you can tell that they are miles away. They do not care they're not listening, that we're not in a conversation. They're throwing out a question and I'm just like saying an answer, hoping that somebody will one day hear it. It is not a good feeling. But that's what Mike is getting from Dave. But after the phone call, you see Dave walk up to this. He's outside of a house, walks up to the front door of a house, knocks on it. Door opens. It's Allie. He was been standing out front of Allie's house while he was talking to Mike. And you see Allie's kind of out of it. She's kind of little wasted. And she invites him in. And you find out that she was at the dermatologist's office because she was getting a mole removed, a mole that her and Dave had a special nickname for, the General. And you could tell, like, instantly that Dave, the type of Dave that is, when he's around Allie, is such a sweet Dave. In so many, I mean, they had their fight in the first season, but that type of Dave is not present in any of his other relationships with other people. Like, it's so weird, especially this season, because we haven't seen that Dave in this season. This is the first time we see the sweet Dave, at least in my opinion. All of the other times we're seeing Dave, he's kind of an asshole. I mean, he was fun-loving with Benny Blanco, definitely having a lot of fun, definitely a positive guy. But then it's still a different type. It's a sweeter, more a nice Dave, and the relationship that he has with Allie is so sweet. And you finally get like a reminder of what that was like from the first season. Allie asks him to change her bandage, so she gets in the tub and takes her shirt up, and her tits are out, and he's like, your tits are out. Feels kind of awkward, but you know. He starts to do it, and because of the medication that Dave is taking for his back acne, I forget the name of it, it causes him to throw up on her open wound where the General used to be. And that is how the episode ends, with Allie finding out that Dave just puked into her open wound. Now, she was high on Oxycontin, so I'm sure probably the best time to puke inside somebody's open wound when they're high on oxys. But nonetheless, it was a sweet moment. You find out that Allie's still sad at Dave, which, you know, better than being mad at, definitely. Just sad, just disappointed at how it ended. And they were sweet. I really do love Dave and Allie together. But, anyway, Dave got a little bit of that. I don't know if it's closure that he's getting, but he's clearly been thinking about her a lot. Probably the majority of the time, and maybe that's why he seems to have been over-focused on this idea for his career. But anyway, we get that little bit of taste of Sweet Dave again, which I love. But overall, probably the funniest episode of this season so far. It's been it's only episode 3. First episode, super tense anxiety, kind of a bummer. Like Dave, probably the worst in episode 1. Then episode 2, it's kind of like Dave's ego and him trying to, kind of pump up his ego a bit. Still not a Dave that's like fun to watch, but a true depiction of what it's like for somebody whose ego is damaged. And then this one, we kind of get a little bit more clarity. We get the taste of like happy Dave in different forms too. The type of Dave, we get to see a completely different side of Dave with his relationship with Benny Blanco. But then we also get reminded of what Dave was like with Allie. And it was sweet, and I enjoyed it. So that was Dave, Season 2, Episode 3, The Observer. Next week will be Episode 4, which is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So until next week, keep that bubble gum out of your butthole. It's just not worth it. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.